This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brayan Pena. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
Today's Tigers Talk podcast is also brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Listeners can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. Welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I'm your host, Vito Chirco, along to my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun, the Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles and Matt Goroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, looking forward to this edition of Tigers Talk. When news breaks, it was kind of funny. I didn't know that Brayan Pena signed a minor league deal with the Detroit Tigers. Just scrolling through Twitter on Monday, and Steve Chimenti, super fan of the podcast network, he tweets out and he's like, hey, didn't you guys interview Brayan Pena? And I saw his link that Brayan Pena has signed, and so I had a feeling, and I'm like, Vito, hey, shoot the man a text and see if he wants to make a repeat appearance, because his first appearance was awesome. We got him to say that your podcast is the best podcast in the United States.
Yes.
And so we get a chance to talk to new Detroit Tiger Brayan Pena on this edition of the podcast. What else you got for us?
Yeah, Pena back for a second stint. Always a pleasure having him on. Have to look at Leonys Martin, the center fielder for the Tigers that Avila acquired this offseason. What will he do for the Tigers this upcoming season? Also, an Athletic article, right, from the Athletic Detroit, proud partner with us now at the DSP network. They came out with an article about Jose Iglesias, about him being traded, who will replace him as well at shortstop, and, well, Lugo, Sergio, Alcantara. Who will it be at shortstop manning that position full-time this upcoming season? At second base, it looks like Dixon Machado will replace Ian Kinsler. Up the middle, those two guys, you have Machado, you have Iglesias as of right now, but Machado, and probably it's going to be Lugo or Alcantara. I mean, are you really trusting in that being an effective double play tandem all season long and lasting as a double play tandem with the big league club all season long? I know I'm not, Doc.
The reason why this subject got opened up and the reason why it got on our radar was Avila, general manager, went on the ticket and they asked him about the future of some of the current players on the roster regarding James McCann, regarding Jose Iglesias. And when he started to speak about Jose Iglesias, he indicated that it's likely that Iglesias would start the season on the main roster, but that they were entertaining trade talks and that by the end of the season, it's more than likely they're going to move on from Jose Iglesias, and that's because of the fact there are some other infielders we'll talk about after the interview, but there are some other infielders waiting in the wings that could take the place of Jose Iglesias, so it would kind of indicate it's a weird feeling if you're a Major League Baseball player, listening to the radio, and the boss is like, yeah, he's going to be on the team, but we're actively shopping him. But
you'd have to believe to that point, Doc, that they've talked to him openly about him being traded. I mean, nobody's safe. Nick Castellanos is it. Miguel Cabrera for the right trade, I think, would be dealt. I think Jordan Zimmerman for the right deal would be dealt. And, once again, we've talked about this ad nauseum in the past, but Miguel Cabrera, Jordan Zimmerman, their contracts are albatrosses of contracts. Somebody would have to pick up their deals, a lot of that money in their respective contracts. That would be the big holdup, dealing either Cabrera or Zimmerman. The good thing about Iglesias is that he's not making that much money, and that's why he's much more movable and more than likely will be dealt, as Avila was saying on that first episode of Tiger Talk with Dan Dickerson and Pat Caputo.
Very interesting article reading on theathletic.com. Like you said, you can get 20% off a yearly subscription if you go to theathletic.com/DSP. So I'm looking at this article by Katie Strang. I'm liking the questions that she's asking, and you and I will peek at some of them. She asks, how will new manager Ron Gardenhire kind of shape a young team that has very little pressure and non-existent expectations? Who's going to nail down the job at center field? How will the team's pitching staff shake out? Some variables on that starting staff, including Michael Fulmer's post-surgery recovery, which we've talked about. Two players that always come up in these Tigers Talk podcasts, and they got to develop Matthew Boyd and Daniel Norris. Norris has been up in his game on social media, kind of telling some jokes. I mean, I know you've probably seen it. And then, like we talked about, Jordan Zimmerman's off-season kind of workouts and what he's trying to do in terms of moving forward. You and I will tackle and chop on some of those topics. But first and foremost, I want to get to Brayan Pena. I want to see how he reconnected with the Tigers and what he thinks his role is going to be now, because there is a little bit of depth at catcher right now. The Tigers have made some moves, and some people are talking about the addition of Pena being for basically organizational depth. But I want to see what his sense of how he's feeling after the season, how he's viewing you in the podcast, and let's catch up with Brayan Pena right now.
And I am now joined here on Tigers Talk via Vito's VIP line by one of the most respectable guys in all of baseball, who just inked a minor league deal with the Detroit Tigers, longtime Major League Baseball catcher Brayan Pena. And a guy that's been on here before. Brayan, glad to have you back on. Happy New Year and happy belated birthday as well to you.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you, guys. Happy New Year to you guys also, and your families. And, it was one of those things, man, that I really appreciate the opportunity that you guys gave me again to be in your show.
Well, thank you so much for being on, and welcome back to Motown. And let's get down to business now, all right? Why did you end up choosing the Tigers to ink a minor league deal with?
It was something that my wife and I, we were very excited about it. We had a couple teams that they reached us and stuff like that, but it wasn't a brainer for me. I had a great time, down there, with the Tigers, a couple years back, and it feels like right the right fit for us, and we love it. We love the organization. We love the people. And especially the fans. Obviously, it's a totally different situation for me, but at the same time, it's the same heart, the same feeling for the organization, and I feel like why not? Because I'm so excited and so thankful, to be back and see what happened.
Longtime Major League backstop Brayan Pena here on Tigers Talk this week with me via Vito's VIP line. And so, Brayan, how long did you know the Tigers were interested in and willing to bring you back to the ball club?
Well, it was one of those things that I really, I was waiting for the opportunity, and the opportunity opens up, and it was a no-brainer for me. I really, I reached out and see what happened, and then the feeling was mutual. I got a great reception back from the front office, and obviously Al from the organization, and after that it was just a matter of time, for me to sign back, with the Tigers, and here we are, man. So excited! I can't wait to get down to Lakeland and get back to work.
So what are you looking forward to the most when it comes to playing for the likes of Doug Minkiewicz at AAA Toledo and for Ron Gardenhire with the big league club?
Well, it's one of the things that I just couldn't expect, to be me. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, I know the situation, like I said before, is totally different than the one that I signed before, but at the same time, I just wanna go out there and prove that I still can play the game and prove, to myself that why not? You know what I'm saying? Why not going out there and grind it out and see what happens? But at the same time, it's all about me being able to be where I'm happy, and me being able to be close to home, and obviously. The organization is an amazing organization. It's an organization that I know well. It's an organization that had a great tradition, and the most important thing that I saw when I played there, it was the fans, man, the reception. Even though after years that I left, the organization, I still have a great reception from the fans. I still have a lot of love and respect, coming from them, and that's something that it drove me back to make that decision to sign with the Tigers.
So, Brayan, I think everybody knows you played with the Tigers one season in 2013, and everybody loved you and respected you. So, and your role might have been different back then what it will be now, and I want to transition into that topic. Have you heard from anybody in the Tigers organization yet about what your role specifically will be with the club in 2018?
No, it's one of those things that they they were very, very clear with me, and I understood. It's one of the things that obviously, McCann is their guy, you know what I'm saying? And, obviously I'm very excited about McCann because when I was there, he was a very young player, but he had a lot of talent and his future was bright. And, at the same time, it's one of those things that, I just gonna go out there to a spring training and see what happened. You know what I'm saying? You never know. I'm gonna go out there and see what I can do and stuff like that. And I'm willing to to continue to improve my game, even though I'm being around a little bit. But at the same time, man, I'm there. I'm there to support the Tigers in whatever they need me. I'm there to support the entire organization and continue to do so because like I say, the excitement level is very clear. That's one of the reasons that I signed back, and it's just exciting, man. It's just very exciting to be back, and obviously, let's see what happens. Whatever they need me, I can play first. I can do a lot of stuff that I've done it before. In the big league level. So and helping the younger players, especially with the Spanish players, to kind of learn about the system and how everything fit in and like I said, man, whatever it takes they need me to do, I'm down. You know what I'm saying? But hopefully, when I get to spring training, I can have a better picture of exactly what my my destination will be with the organization.
Brayan, you said it yourself. James McCann is currently the guy at catcher for the Tigers. They also have John Hicks there, who played last season, some other guys moving up through the farm system. And I know you had the role of mentoring young ball players with the Royals last season. Now, what do you envision in terms of the advice that you will be lending to McCann, to Hicks, and other guys, other catchers moving up through the Tigers farm system in 2018?
Well, one thing I can assure you something for sure. I always gonna be there for them. I always gonna be there for whatever they need me. I always gonna be there for the entire organization. You know what I mean? To be behind, the scene. And help them. To get better. Help them to continue to improve their game. You know what I'm saying? I understand. You have to understand your role. You have to understand your position. But at the same time, I'm feeling I'm feeling great that I have that opportunity to be back, on the organization and help, because it's all about. It's not all about. I'm sorry. It's not all about hitting and catching and throwing. This game. Today's day. It's about. Preparation. It's about how to approach the game. On and off the field. You know what I'm saying? And help them. You know what I mean? To improve their game more than they have, because I've been following their career, and they obviously they both doing pretty good, and I hope that they don't need my help as much, but at the same time, I would be willing to do whatever it takes to if they need my help, you know what I mean, to be there.
And I love that you're willing to embrace that role of doing whatever it takes to help out the Tigers in 2018. That's great to hear, and it is Brayan Pena joining me on this week's episode of Tigers Talk via Vito's VIP line. And something, Brayan, I've never asked you about is, did you always want to be a catcher growing up as a youngster playing the game of baseball? Did you know that you always wanted to be a catcher?
Yeah, from the first time that I put that gear on, I always knew that that wasn't a special position for me. I played some first, I played some right field and stuff like that. But nothing like catching. Nothing like being the quarterback of the baseball field. And remember, I've been behind on play, for a long time, and I learned a lot from great coaches. I learned a lot from great players, and I learned a lot from great managers. So when you are behind on play, you feel like you another coach, you feel like you another manager, you feel like you another pitching coach, you know what I'm saying? Because at the same time, the stuff that you see, the stuff that you learn, throughout the experience, you know what I'm saying? You really appreciate that position even more. And, and that's the way I see it. But, I play in Cincinnati first base, through Joey Votto. He got hurt. So I had to, I had to step up in that position, and I love that position. I enjoy my time playing that position, but nothing like catching, man. To be honest with you, I feel like, that position gave me and bring me so much, but into today's day, that I still love it. You know what I'm saying? I still have the passion for it, and I advise all catchers out there, especially the younger one, to invest a lot of time and spend a lot of time learning that position, because it's such a lovely position, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of preparation, to be a catcher, and especially at the big league level.
Putting on that catcher's gear, I can tell, Brayan, still gives you that special feeling, like the first time when you put on the catcher's gear. And as you said, truly, the catcher is the quarterback of the baseball diamond. So you have a lot of responsibilities on your plate each game that you start behind the plate. And one last question I'll leave you with on this week's episode of Tigers Talk, Brayan. Who was that one catcher growing up that you tried to mold your game after?
Oh, definitely. We weren't even close, you know what I mean, to the catcher that he was. But my favorite catcher always was Javier Lopez.
Okay.
Javi Lopez, you remember from the Braves?
Yes, I do. Yes. A good hitter, too.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, this guy, he was hitting homers, and this guy, he was like 6'6", and, catcher and stuff like that. But it's just the how humble he was, and the first time that I had the opportunity to meet him when I was with the Brave, it was something that I really appreciate all the advice. I really appreciate how humble he was. I really appreciate, everything that he taught me, it's unbelievable how, me growing up, being a Brave fan, and especially a Javi Lopez fan, and then I end up signing with the Brave, and then sharing a locker room with my idol. So I love him as a player so much, and as a person, that I named my son Javier after him. So that's how much I love Javier Lopez.
What an awesome story, Brayan, and thanks for sharing that. And we'll leave the audience with that very anecdote. Always a pleasure having you on, and best of luck to you in 2018 as well.
Hey, thanks, guys. Peace out. I really appreciate it. God bless you all. It's a great opportunity. Thank you guys for having me on the show. I really enjoy the show. I really enjoy everything, everybody behind the scene that put this great show together. And God bless you all, and especially, everybody out there in this wonderful world.
And that was longtime Major League backup Brayan Pena. Always a pleasure having him on. Seems like he always loves coming on. He respects us. We respect him. As I said in introing him, one of the most respectable, lovable, and appreciated guys in all of baseball. He really is. You see like nothing bad ever said about him. You can follow him, by the way, on Twitter as well, at Cuban2727, Doc.
Gosh, Vito, you're interrupting his daily routine. I mean, the man is picking up his kids and he's dialing you up. That means he must have a great amount of respect for you. And I love the fact that with a guy like that he comes on and he shows appreciation for us inviting him. He's very religious, and he's always a nice conversation to talk to. I mean, it seems like he's really excited to come back to Detroit, and it always seemed like he had an affinity based upon our previous chat with him, that he had affinity and a love for the fans of Detroit. And so him coming back, hopefully he can be that mentor, and hopefully he can have some success, even maybe an opportunity to make it back up to the big club, because that way we can say we have Detroit Tiger Brayan Pena on the podcast. It's nice to have a relationship, and like we've learned, it's about relationships, and it seems like he's very fond of the best podcast in the United States, the Vito Chirco podcast. So that's really awesome. I enjoyed it. Got to sit back and listen and periscope it, and all good. And you handled the ups and downs. It was a good interview. I enjoyed it.
I love that he loves us. We love him once again. Always a pleasure speaking with him. One of the best interviews already of 2018, but early on in 2018. And we still have a lot to talk about regarding the Tigers, too, on this week's podcast, obviously, Doc. And we had said before, talking with Brayan, about the infield dilemma, specifically at shortstop, what to do there once, well, really, if and when, and more of when Jose Iglesias is dealt. And it seems like he is bound to be booted from Motown eventually. And then the question becomes, who will replace him as shortstop?
We'll tackle that next on this edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company.
Doc, one of our fine sponsors, as you and everybody should already know about, is the Detroit Sports Commission. And since 2001, the Detroit Sports Commission has applied its expert touch to marketing and to selling the Metro Detroit area as a marquee destination for regional, national, and even international amateur sporting events. And through the Detroit Sports Commission's help, these events have attracted thousands of visitors and pumped millions of dollars into our local economy. It is why Detroit is now not only the place where champions are made, but also the place where championships are played. To find out more about the Detroit Sports Commission and all of the events they are bringing to our very region, please follow the DSC on Twitter and on Instagram at DET Sports, and make sure to check out their fine website at DetroitSports.org. Back here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and company. I'm your host, Vito Chirco. The Doc is alongside for the ride as usual. And Doc, we have to discuss the middle of the infield dilemma. Second base and shortstop. Second base, who will replace Ian Kinsler? Dixon Machado is the early favorite for that position. And then at shortstop, once Iglesias is dealt, it seems very inevitable at this point. Very inevitable that Iglesias is dealt.
First and foremost, are you okay with that? When Avila came out and said that and told the ticket that information?
Well, I would say yes, because, at this point, Tigers are not trying to win. Jose Iglesias really isn't a big component of helping your team to win, even if you were trying to win. So why not deal him for prospects to continue to revamp your farm system, which is necessary right now for the Tigers?
Okay, and then it seems like, based upon what Avila said, that there are a couple players that are waiting in the wings. Tell me a little bit about them.
Sergio Alcantara and Joel Lugo from the D-backs in that JD Martinez deal with Arizona last season. A deal that really wasn't well liked by many pundits and fans alike. So it is questionable that return and what those guys will amount to. That is Joel Lugo and Sergio Alcantara. Lugo, the prize chip / piece of that package of prospects that went to the Tigers in the JD Martinez deal with the Diamondbacks. So Lugo has a better upside, and I think the higher chance of being something in the future for the Tigers at second, short, third base. I think he can play at the major league level. The thing is, starting full time, that is very much a question mark at this point. And I don't think, I don't know if he's ready. I don't know if he'll ever be ready. And the thing is, the Tigers have to try out all these guys and see what they're made of, and they will find out a lot about these guys, including Alcantara, including Joel Lugo, in spring training.
Okay, it seems like, based upon the moves that were made, some people at first were like, the infield definitely needed to be addressed. You needed to kind of stockpile it a little bit because a lot of the moves involved arms. And so you've seen, Candelario, you've seen based upon a couple of moves that they're looking to start the process of restocking that infield. But am I right to say that in terms of depth in the organization, they probably need to, in the next couple drafts, continue to stockpile infield help based upon their going out and getting a bunch of arms in some of these deals in terms of the plethora of the moves in terms of sheer number?
Well, they've got a lot of infielders now. Now, the thing is, the next thing to really get would be outfielders. Outfield prospects, specifically when you look at positional prospects in the Tigers farm system currently, and what they need to go out and get, I would say it is the outfielders that they need to accumulate. And it'd be nice to find somebody that really can start and contribute big time to the major league roster within the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, 21-year-old Alcantara was also ranked the best defensive infielder in Baseball America's recently released evaluation of the Tigers system. So it's okay. The ratings are starting to kind of show up. And the question is, though, when it's time to play every single day, can you be that defensive shortstop? Can you do the job? Because of the fact that, in baseball, you can have a specialty, but at the same time, they really would like you to be able to contribute offensively. And so do you think the biggest reason why Jose Iglesias has lost favor with the organization is his below-average batting average that just hasn't gone up at all in the last couple of seasons? Because it seemed like he had promised when he came from Boston. It seemed like he provided a spark to the organization in terms of his, getting key hits. And when he came up, it seemed like this was a guy that could have been around a decade. What contributed to his decline, and why are we talking about now moving on from Jose Iglesias?
Just because they're trying to move on from everybody that has value on their major league roster. To accumulate prospects, those outfield prospects, those pitching prospects, whatever it may need that they feel they need to revamp their farm system completely, and their roster and what their big league roster will become moving forward, I think is what they're going out to achieve. So dealing Jose Iglesias is a part of that process.
So you're saying that if the organization had funds aplenty, Jose could be looked at as a guy that you can keep because of his defensive wizardry. But based upon the fact now that he's getting older, he's going to command more money, they can maybe shift to younger players that can maybe do a little bit more offensively, and maybe you sacrifice just a little bit defensively. But it seems like Alcantara is a solid defender. So you're saying that based upon what's out there, they can maybe go out there and get a younger player to do the job at maybe a more effective cost, which I always like. You know that.
Well, they're thinking that, yeah, I know you like that because of me and what I make here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. But anyways, they feel that Dixon Machado at second base is adequate defensively and offensively too, and fits that mold of being cheaper but also effective. So that's why he's going to replace Ian Kinsler at second base, moving on from a much more expensive Ian Kinsler and replacing him with Dixon Machado. Now at shortstop, I don't think Sergio is the shortstop of the future. I don't think Doel necessarily is the shortstop of the future. But for Sergio's sake, once again, it's defensive wizardry. The thing is, I don't think he can hit the baseball consistently enough to start at the major league levels. I don't think he'll ever be a full-time starter with the Tigers or anybody else in the majors. Now, Doel Lugo, that is, he can hit the baseball. He, at least, is a guy that fits the mold of a Juan Uribe, a guy that would play third base, could hit for pop a little bit. So he's a guy that's a little bit more enticing because of the bat that he brings.
Now, to tackle some of the questions from this Katie Strang article on theathletic.com, I find it interesting because everybody that's come out has said, look, the Tigers are going to lose a bunch of games. And you could argue that pretty much all day long. I mean, the facts bear out that the Tigers are going to struggle, probably. But I think that the first question she asked is pretty good. How will new manager Ron Gardenhire shape a young team with very little pressure and virtually non-existent expectations? How much in your mind could you allow to enter the idea that this Tigers team could shock the world? Because to me, I kind of would be really excited that this kind of young group of talent, the thought that maybe a cheap group of talent, kind of like the U.S. hockey Olympic team full of amateurs went up there and they faced the big bad Russians and they were able to take down the gold. But for the Detroit Tigers, maybe to go through a season, do you see a scenario? What percentage in your mind would you give a little bit of faith that this Tigers team could shock the world and maybe even win 85, 90 games or even be a Cinderella team? How much of that would enter into your mind? Would you give it 10%?
Slim to none are the chances?
None? No Cinderella. You don't see any Cinderella in this group. It's all training. It's all look at the minors. It's all development. You don't see wins.
My mind is telling me no, but my body is telling me yeah. Just a little bit. But slim to none, once again, the odds are, I mean, what are they going to win at the most? 70 to 75? I think 75 wins is the cap on wins for the Tigers in 2018. I think it's...
That's the cap, huh?
Yeah. For the Tigers, it's more like they win 65 games or 62 or 60 games this season.
Vito.
Sorry, Doc.
No, listen. If you allow your mind to entertain the notion of A-plus scenarios, it's happened before where teams have come on. Now, winning it all, that's probably zero. But in terms of maybe making the postseason, I could entertain maybe 5 to 10% chance. If Michael Fulmer is completely healthy and he dominates, you get something from Jordan Zimmerman, Matthew Boyd, and Daniel Norris. You get some meaningful innings from them, and then maybe a fifth starter that can do some things. There's an opportunity. If you just allow your mind to kind of, have a little bit of faith, there is a small chance, a small window, that a young group of kids can take the attitude of, hey, us against the world. Ron Gardenhire has done some things with less in the past. There's an opportunity. Just keep in mind, just plant a seed that a podcast known throughout Metro Detroit is just entertaining the thought that maybe this group could be Cinderella. That would be wild. And I think I'd be more excited to kind of win with this kind of group than I would be with just buying the talent. I think it would be exciting. The young boys of summer, we can call them. I guess we got to kind of find a nice way of saying the young kids. We can't call them the boys of summer. Maybe we'll call them the minor leagues of summer.
The young boys of summer.
The
outside
young boys
of Brayan
summer.
Pena, a guy like that who, if he makes a big league club out of spring, or I think he'll play with the Tigers at some point. Brayan Pena, his influence, his impact, they're gonna make the playoffs because of him, Doc. Only because of him. But realistically, you know what? I think it's more likely that I find a girlfriend through Tinder or other means than the Tigers making the playoffs in 2018.
Cousin Adam will get this reference too. I think he'll like it. Because Adam and I like wrestling, we can call this group the Young Bucks of Summer. All right, so I guess you're not willing to entertain even the notion that this team could be a winner. Who locks down the position at center field, in your mind?
Leonys Martin, a recent addition of Avila and the Tigers front office. Now, I want to get into him in a little bit, like in a few minutes from now, about a projection for 2018. But first and foremost, you said Daniel Norris, and you brought up how he's got to get things together. He's got to be much more sharp, much more healthy in 2018. I think for the Tigers to sustain any kind of success as well. And he's been red hot on Twitter. Maybe he has to get off of Twitter, like somebody else who we won't name right now, who's making a lot of, has a big influence on the country. But anyways, Daniel Norris, some good tweets of late. He has been on fire. I saw this one from January 6th. He said on Twitter, "A kid just threw a pine cone at my car as I drove by, looked me dead in the eyes and screamed. I'm not even mad. It's a negative 100 degrees today, and that encourages me for this next generation that he is outside playing." And then he followed up with another tweet and said, "To be honest, TBH, I couldn't get mad because his mechanics were much more repeatable than mine. He dotted the outside corner of my vehicle, and then he said, I'm working, as in he's trying now to paint the outside corner, maybe a little bit more often moving forward as a big league arm. Something he really needs to do for the Tigers to, like I said, sustain some kind of success in 2018 as a ball club. But back to his tweets, they are red hot, Doc, aren't they? And he's right about this generation of kids growing up. They got to get outside and start playing and creating their own games and maybe throwing pine cones at cars and trees and houses because, you work on your arm, maybe that kid becomes a pitcher, but it's just about getting physical activity. And not that I want to go on a rant about physical activity, but once again, back to Daniel Norris. I love his Twitter game. Now it's about his baseball game, his pitching game getting better in 2018. That will be something to really check out and a work in progress, I think, for him.
So you're not down with JaCoby Jones earning that job, or you don't think he'll continue to evolve and earn that position?
Well, back to Leonys Martin. I think he's a better defender, a plus defender, and JaCoby Jones, what does he offer at this point? He can't hit to save his life. He's not great defensively, I think, in judging balls out there in center field. It's not his position that he came up playing, so he's not used to playing out there totally yet. And you know what? I think the best attribute that he brings to the ball club is his speed. He's fleet of foot. He can cover a lot of ground in center field because he is speedy. But after that, it's about judging balls out there as well and playing, taking the right routes on balls. Can he do that? I don't think he's shown that enough yet to say that he should be the center fielder. And once again, it goes back to his lackluster hitting as well. Leonys Martin is not the greatest hitter by any stretch, but I believe he can sustain some level of productivity a little bit more consistently at the plate than JaCoby Jones can. And that's why I think Martin, he's the favorite right now to start in center field to start 2018.
Okay, Big Vito's over-under, quick round. Over-under 12 wins for Matthew Boyd, 2018.
Well, I'm going to say under because if his ERA is where it was last year, and then with the Tigers not being as great of a ball club, I'm going to say around 8 wins. He gets 8 to 10 from Matt Boyd.
Same number, Daniel Norris.
I'm going to say he actually reaches 12. He might go 12 and 10 or 12 and 11 or 12 and 12. So I'm going to say he gets to 12 wins actually, after I just slammed him before that kind of.
It's kind of funny because last season you kind of would rail against your guests for kind of picking the same number. So Vito, the name of the game is Big Vito's over-under.
You said over-under 12? Well, I said under for Boyd. I'm going to have to take the under for Norris because I don't see him winning more than 12.
Okay, so
if you said over under 12 and a half, well, I'm still going to take the under.
Okay.
I guess over under 11 and a half, I'm taking the over. So there you go. Now you know my opinion on that.
The reason why you got criticism because you said 12.
That's and I've done it to my guests where I've thrown them into the fire because they haven't given me a clear-cut answer on taking the over or under when we've played Big Vito's over-under in the past.
All right, Vito, I really thoroughly enjoyed the baseball chat. Anything else you want to hit me with?
Yeah, really quick, Leonys, once again, Martin, the center fielder of 2018, in my opinion, for the Tigers, on a pretty much daily basis. The projection for him from baseballreference.com is 9 home runs, 29 ribbies, a 234 batting average, a below 300 on-base percentage, and an OPS below 700. Numbers that I could see him producing in 2018. I think baseballreference.com is pretty much on point with his projections across the board. Maybe he gets to 10 home runs, maybe to 35 to 40 ribbies, but around 235 I see him hitting. On base percentage, probably slightly below 300 like they're projecting. And his OPS, I think it'll be a little bit higher, but this guy's career OPS is right around that, in the 660 range, 661 for his career. Once again, they're projecting him to finish with 3 sixes. Don't want to tout that too much because it's the Devil's number. Don't want to, start a controversy here. But anyways, he's not going to be great offensively, but I still think Martin, he is the guy that should be starting in center field because when you compare him and JaCoby Jones, at least, he is the better option out there.
I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to the best podcast in the United States. Thanks to Brayan Pena joining us on this week's edition of Tigers Talk.
We'll be back next week for more Tigers news and notes on Tigers Talk. Adios for now.
Thanks for supporting the network. Continue to support us by visiting our website and listening to all the podcasts, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.